Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I've got a really fun review for you. This time it is the 2010 through 2015 Honda Interstate 1300. In this video we'll take a look at the history of the Interstate 1300. I'll also go over the specs of the bike, and in a little bit I'm going to gear up and take the camera along, and I'll take this bike out on the road to see how it rides. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. Looking at the history of the VT1300CT Interstate. In the mid-2000s in the US, the chopper craze was really taking the country by storm, and it was fueled by shows like Orange County Choppers. Honda sought to cash in on the chopper market, and they released their very radical looking Honda Fury 1300. The Fury went on to be an overnight sales success. They combined the radical chopper looks with Honda's legendary reliability. Honda sought to capitalize on the success of the Fury, and so they spawned a whole range of models that were based on the engine and transmission that were found in the Fury. These models included the Honda Sabre, the Honda Stateline, and the Honda Interstate. The Sabre, the Stateline, and the Interstate all shared the same bodywork, and they differed in some minor details. The Stateline and the Interstate got the 17-inch front wheel with the wider front tire, while the Sabre had a larger, narrower front tire. What really sets the Interstate apart from the other bikes in the lineup are the touring accessories that Honda put on here from the factory, and those include a removable front windshield. This is a factory windshield. It's a very nice piece. It's quickly removable with 4 bolts. The Interstate also got the driver floorboards from factory, and it got a heel and toe shifter on the left side of the bike. The final items that set the Interstate apart are the leather-wrapped hard bags that Honda included. While these hard bags are technically removable, they are not designed to be taken on and off quickly and easily. The saddlebags also feature a hidden latch on the backside of them, so they are locked unless you release that catch. Most people aren't going to know where that is, but these bags are technically not lockable. This particular bike is a 2015 Honda Interstate, and it features some nice goodies that didn't come on the original that really enhance the touring performance. The first of which is the Mustang saddle. The Mustang saddle is much more comfortable long distance than the stock seat. That's a very, very nice upgrade. Additionally, the wider and thicker passenger pad is much more comfortable than the stock Honda seat. Another nice addition is this low backrest. I like this backrest because it does give the passenger some support and security, but it doesn't really spoil the lines of the bike. I think it's a nice looking backrest. Looking at the specs of the bike, the Honda Interstate is powered by a 1312cc liquid-cooled 52-degree V-twin engine. It features 3 valves per cylinder, and the fuel injection is a PGM FI unit, and it feeds the engine through a 38mm single throttle body. This engine has a 9.2 to 1 compression ratio. This motor puts out 58 horsepower at the rear wheel at 4,250 RPM. While that number is not really overwhelming, the great thing about this engine is it produces almost 80 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel, as low as 2,200 RPM. It kind of punches above its weight due to the high torque output of the motor. Those horsepower and torque figures allow the Interstate to clock off a 0 to 60 time in just under 6 seconds, and it achieves a top speed of 100 miles an hour. The engine is mated to a 5-speed transmission with shaft final drive. As I mentioned earlier, the shifter on this bike is a heel-toe unit and is actually adjustable, so you can set that up to your preference. One thing that you notice as soon as you see the Interstate is that it is long and low. It has a 26.8-inch seat height, and that makes it very accessible for a wide range of riders. The wheelbase on the Interstate is 70.3 inches, so it is a long wheelbase bike. The Interstate also features a very raked out front end. The front suspension features 33 degrees of rake on it, and that's fairly radical, but Honda has done some magic here, and even though this is really raked out in the front end, it handles very easily at lower speeds, and it's still stable at the higher speeds as well. The front forks on this bike are conventional units. They are 41mm forks, and they are non-adjustable, and they have 4 inches of suspension travel. Out back, this bike features a monoshock with 3.9 inches of travel. The wet weight on the bike is 712 pounds, so it is not a lightweight bike, but thankfully it handles its weight very well. It feels like it's got a very low center of gravity, and it really does not feel top heavy out on the road. In the braking department, the Interstate features a large single disc brake up front with a dual piston caliper acting on that. Out back, it features another large single disc brake with a large single piston caliper acting on that. One of the few options available on the Interstate was the option to have ABS brakes. Fuel capacity on the Interstate is right around 4.5 gallons, and it averages right around 47 miles to the gallon. Instrumentation on the Interstate is very simple. It has a large analog speedometer, and in addition to the odometer and trip meters, it also has a digital clock. Although the bike does not have a fuel gauge, it does have a low fuel warning light when you get to that point. All right, enough talk. What is the Interstate like to ride? How does it perform out on the open road? I'm going to gear up. I'll bring the camera along. Let's find out together. Let's ride.
I am currently riding Honda's 1300 Interstate, and the first thing I notice is this is a comfortable seating position. I like the floorboards on the bike. This Mustang seat has some nice lower back support to it. I'm doing about 55 miles an hour right now, and I'm getting a little bit of vibration through the floorboards, very minimal vibration through the handlebars. It's got the prerequisite cruiser chrome on it. I'm actually getting a little bit of glare off of the inside of the windshield and all the chrome up there. This bike has nice passing power even at highway speeds. I'm in top gear right now, and it just pulls very cleanly from 40 miles an hour. This bike isn't necessarily a horsepower king, but it does have very nice, very usable torque. The motor is a long stroke V-twin in this bike, and it gives it very nice pulling power from very low RPM. And it does have get up and go when you get on it. I really like the way the motor in this bike feels. It's smooth, has nice sound to it, does have the big V-twin sound. Even with a stock exhaust, you can hear the sound of the engine when you get on the gas. And it just gets this bike up to speed relatively quickly. I'm 6'4", and when I get up to higher speeds, I do notice a little bit of buffeting on my windshield and my helmet. It's actually causing the helmet to open up a little bit, and if I was going to own this thing long term, I would probably put a taller windshield on it. The brakes on this bike, although it does not have the dual disc brakes up front, which I prefer on a big bike, if you use the front and rear brakes together, it does haul the bike down very quickly from speed. They have a nice feel to them. For me, the sweet spot when I'm riding most cruisers, and this bike is no exception, I think the sweet spot is right around 55 miles an hour or a little bit less than that. And it's really nice to just mosey on through the countryside, enjoy the beautiful views. And just enjoy the relaxing ride that the big V-twin provides. The ride on this interstate is pretty nice. It seems pretty well controlled for a bike that doesn't have much in the way of suspension adjustment. Yeah, the transmission really does shift nicely going up through the gears, and it's very easy to match the RPM and to just go up through the gears very, very smoothly. The nice thing about the heel toe shifter is that you could use it just as a normal shifter. I'm not used to the heel toe shifters. I don't have too many cruisers with the heel toe shifters on them. And so sometimes I use this with that, and sometimes I just use it as a standard transmission. But it functions very easily either way. And this is the kind of bike that just makes me want to get out and go for a nice long trip up into the mountains at just a fairly relaxed pace and just enjoy the bike for what it is. As far as cruisers go, I really like the kind of beachcomber bars that this has. They're somewhat low and wide. They give nice leverage on the front end. And I'm amazed at how easily this bike just transitions in the corners. Yeah, at certain speeds when I make turns, and I've noticed this on several Hondas, the big Hondas with the windshields, it kind of traps, I don't know if it's just wheel noise or what, but I get a little bit of an odd sound coming through. That's not something that I'm concerned about. It's just a odd characteristic of this bike. When I initially saw this bike and saw how long the wheelbase was and how raked out the front end was, I was really afraid it was going to be somewhat unmanageable at low speeds. And I find that this is a very easy bike to ride. The typical Honda product, just get on it and I'm instantly comfortable and it's instantly manageable. We're just getting into some of the beautiful fall riding season here in Pennsylvania, and on the cooler days it is really nice to have a windshield in front of you. It blocks a lot of the cold wind. The nice thing about this bike is with the removal of 4 bolts, the windshield comes off and the mounts on it are still pretty clean looking. So you don't have to remove the entire mounting system. And then you have a naked style bike if you just want to use it that way during the summer and the warmer months. But it's nice on the trips, and when you're going longer distance, the windshield definitely reduces rider fatigue. I'm pretty sure the camera is looking through the windshield right now. At 6'4", I am easily looking over the windshield, so it is not so high that I can't see over it. As on a lot of cruisers, you kind of drive this one by feel. It does not have a tachometer on it, but it's pretty apparent when you drive it. It's very easily discernible, like when you should shift and what gear to be in. One of the direct competitors to the Honda Interstate was Kawasaki's Vulcan 1700 LT. That bike comes similarly equipped with the removable windshield and the leather-wrapped saddlebags. But these two bikes are definitely two different flavors. I would say the Honda is definitely a more modern styled bike. It definitely has a more custom look to it, chopper look to it. And so I think just from a styling standpoint, it really comes down to whether you appreciate the classic cruiser styling of the Vulcan or you like the more radical styling of this Honda. One of the advantages that the Honda has over the Kawasaki is that it seems to handle much easier. It's a lighter feeling motorcycle. I don't know if it's actually technically lighter than the Vulcan, but it definitely is less intimidating to ride. And it's very confidence inspiring as soon as you sit on the bike. It doesn't take a lot of time to get used to it. I would say the only disadvantage to this really long wheelbase and the stretched out look is that U-turns and slower turns take a little bit more diameter to make, and so you just want to be careful when you're making the really low speed sharp turns. Most cruisers that I ride bother my lower back after a very short amount of time. And one of the things that really helps this bike out is it does have the Mustang seat on it. And the Mustang seat gives a noticeable amount of lower back support. And it makes this bike more comfortable for longer distance than it would be without it. The fact that this bike is fuel injected means that it warms up very quickly. You can just fire it up and ride away. It's also fairly fuel efficient, averaging 47 miles to the gallon. So even though the tank isn't huge, it does have a decent range on it.
All right, man, what a lot of fun. With the Interstate, I think Honda has really created a new category of motorcycle. Call it the touring chopper if you want to. The nice thing is that when you get on this bike, as radical and raked out as it looks, it really rides and goes down the road like a traditional cruiser. So it's relaxing to ride, it's relatively comfortable to ride, it has a nice roomy cockpit on it for full-size riders. While the 1300cc fuel-injected V-twin motor in this bike is not going to win any horsepower shootout contests, it is a very suitable power plant for this type of riding. It's very torquey, it's very friendly, even without a tachometer. It's very intuitive on when to shift it. It pulls cleanly out of corners, even if you're not revving it that much. And it's just a very relaxing power plant and goes well with this motorcycle. I like the fact that this bike comes with the windshield and the bags from factory and that gives it a wider range of usability and versatility than the naked Stateline version of this motorcycle. I like the fact that the windshield is pretty easily removable. I'm surprised how well the brakes function on this bike, given the fact that it's only a single disc brake up front and not the dual discs that I'm used to on a bike of this size. And similarly to the Fury, I'm really surprised, pleasantly so, by the fact that this bike is so intuitive and easy to ride, given the radical kind of raked out front end that's on it and the long wheelbase that it has. I like the storage capacity on the saddlebags. I like the fact that they are mounted low, and once you know where it is, the release for these is very easy to get to, and it's very clean. It's very quick and easy to flip these lids up. To me, that's a big advantage over the bags that are found on the competitive bikes. The transmission on this bike is incredibly smooth. It was very easy to use the heel and toe shifter or to just use it as a conventional shifter. If I had any gripes about this bike, I would say that the windshield is a little bit blustery for me at highway speeds, and it causes my helmet visor to kind of come up and vibrate a little bit. I'm a very tall guy at 6'4" tall, so shorter riders will probably be encompassed in clean air. I'm sure there are aftermarket windshields available that will allow you to either raise the height of it or lower the height of it. Given its long wheelbase, there were a few times at lower speeds, whether I was pulling out and making a hard corner or making a hard corner as I was going, that I noticed the long wheelbase. In both instances, the bike made the corner just fine. I simply had to be conscious of the fact that it has a longer wheelbase and it has a little bit larger turning diameter. If I had to use one word to describe the Honda Interstate 1300, it would be intuitive. It is a bike that is very easy to get on and immediately feel comfortable on and confident when you ride it. It's very confidence inspiring in the corners, and despite its radical looks, it is a comfortable, friendly, confidence inspiring bike to ride. Well, I'd love to know what you guys think. If there are any Honda Stateline or Interstate fans out there, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.